Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Economic Development. How many Cabinet papers has he, in his capacity as Minister of Economic Development, submitted to Cabinet during the last 6 months which were not related to mining?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I'm surprised this question got through because it should have been clear that the Minister of Economic Development never takes Cabinet papers relating to mining to Cabinet. But he should have asked that question to my colleague, the Minister of Energy and Resources. But in my capacity as Minister of Economic Development, I've submitted 14 papers to Cabinet in the last 6 months because all as Minister of Economic Development, my friend, 14 as Minister of Economic Development because unlike the other side of the House, I am not fixated on mining.
The Honourable David Parker.
Supplementary.
Order. I've called the Honourable David Parker.
What new moves has he as Minister of Economic Development proposed to fill the hole left by his mining blunder, given that John Key said in December last year members will see a lot of economic development moves by this government in 2010?
Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Well, Mr Speaker, I totally reject the concept of it being a blunder. The mining industry will grow in this country. And further, sir, I could list work related to the wine industry, the food and beverage industry, the leveraging program from the Rugby World Cup, the output class of training through New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, realignment of Trade and Enterprises grant scheme, the aquaculture industry, the various missions that we're running into China this year, sir, the New Zealand Venture Fund, the square kilometre array. It goes on and on and on. We're a very active, economically focused government, Mr Speaker.
Jonathan Young.
How many oral questions in his capacity as Minister of Economic Development has he been asked by the opposition in the last 12 months?
Mr Speaker, that's the most excellent question. I could say that I've been asked one, and the member's question now makes it two.
Order. Order. I'm not sure that the Minister is actually responsible for the questions an opposition might ask, and I was a bit remiss, I think, in allowing it, but never mind. The Honourable David Parker, I apologise to him for that. The Honourable David Parker.
Does the Minister agree with commentators that his inept mining moves, from step change to a giant U-turn, show that he has no credible plan to bridge the gap between New Zealand and Australia, which had stabilised under Labour, but contrary to National's election promise, is now growing wider and wider?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Well, it's fascinating that the member should say that the New Zealand economy had stabilised against Australia when for the last 5 years of that government our export receipts went into negative year after year after year. Mr Speaker, the current government has a clear program to grow many sectors of the New Zealand economy, and if time allowed, and the member asks one more question, I'll give him a very good example.
The Honourable David Parker.
I'm happy to give that example. Has he presented any Cabinet paper on any specific measure to develop New Zealand into an Asian-Pacific hub for financial services?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, that is a matter that's being considered by ministers at the moment in due course. Well, Mr Speaker, we've been a government for around 20 months. And one of the things that we've done is find $21 million to fund a program that the Labor government had on the books for 7 years and could not move. Mr Speaker, that is the Food Innovation Network New Zealand. And I quote Professor Ray Winger, who said it's been frustrating at times working with the Labor government. These things are no-brainers and they appear to have none themselves. He finally went on and said, thank God we've finally got a minister who can cut to the chase and get the job done. That minister, sir, is me.
Jonathan Young.
Mr Speaker, to the Minister, how much interest in Cabinet papers has he received from the opposition in the last 12 months in his capacity as Minister for Economic Development?
Order. The member must realise that the Minister has no responsibility for any activities by the opposition. He may have reporting responsibilities, but he does not have any primary responsibility. And I invite the member to rephrase his question to bring it within standing orders, but given I allowed him to get away with the first one that did not actually meet standing orders, I cannot let him get away with this supplementary, but I invite him to reword it. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
I know this is an unusual thing, assisting a junior backbencher from the National Party. He did say how many had he received. The Minister is responsible for what he receives.
I'll listen to the member's question again. If I got it wrong, I do apologise.
How much, you'd like me to repeat the question, how much interest in Cabinet papers has he received from the opposition in the last 12 months in his capacity as Minister for Economic Development?
Order. I have to disagree with my learned colleague, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, because the question was not exactly as the member implied. It was what I thought, that it referred to interest from the opposition in those Cabinet papers, and the Minister has no responsibility for that. What I'll do is, I think there's a further opposition supplementary about to be asked, is there? Yes, no? Well, I'll give the member a moment to reword his question, because I don't want to rule him to lose his supplementary question. If he's ready to ask it now, that's fine. Jonathan Young.
What reports has he received of interest in Cabinet papers from the opposition in the last 12 months in his capacity as Minister for Economic Development?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I'm advised that until today, none.
The Honourable David Parker. Order. I've called the Honourable Member's colleague.
How can his government be expected to have any credibility on closing the gap with Australia when he conceded at Select Committee that the government has no specific timing or targets by which it can be held accountable, and when it clearly has no credible plan?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I think that is a total misrepresentation of a very long dialogue that took place at the Select Committee. And what I would like to suggest to the Minister is that in 20 months, where we have established an economic growth agenda for New Zealand, we're making a great deal more progress than the previous government, who took the economy backwards for the last 5 years of their term.
Question number 5, Rahui Katane. Oh, I apologise. The member must be more on the ball than that. I'll go back to a supplementary to Honourable David Parker. Yeah. I apologise.
What are the targets and timing for closing the gap with Australia?
The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, we've made no secret of the fact that we see it as an aspirational goal to reach... Well, Mr Speaker, he asked for timings. I'm about to give them. To reach Australia for GDP income per capita by 2025. That's been well articulated by numerous national ministers and indeed the Prime Minister over a long period of time. I'm sorry that the member hasn't been awake to hear that sooner.
Question number 5, Rahui Katane.
Thank you.